This is a community conversation. I'm Maura Carlin for LMC Media. I'm speaking with Brigid Brennan, who is a newly appointed trustee for the Village of Larchmont. She was appointed upon the resignation of a prior trustee, and she's been in office about 2 months or so. Brigid, thanks so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Why don't you tell us about your background in Larchmont? How long have you been here?
We moved here over 22 years ago when we had our first child, who was 10 months old, and we were needing to outgrow our apartment in New York City, like many people do. And so we lived for 12 years on one side of Locust Avenue and the last 10 years across the street in a different house. So it's been a really interesting experience.
So you've been here a long time now. What's been your involvement in Larchmont government over that time?
I was fortunate that I've been involved in a lot of different organizations that had the opportunity to work with the village. Really early on, when my children were small, I was on the Flint Park Conservancy and I did the first public-private partnership. At that time, Chris Verney was a trustee on the Village of Larchmont. And so we worked together to redo the playground in Flint Park. That was sort of my big first project with the village. But in addition, I joined the Recreation Committee, which I was on for probably about 15 years. And really enjoyed that experience as my children were growing up and knowing all the kids in the community.
Do you have particular interests, things that you want to accomplish while you're in office?
So I didn't come into the position with sort of an agenda. No, I've been very impressed with the board in how they've been handling not only the COVID crisis in our community, but a lot of the infrastructure issues that we're dealing with, having an older community, the questions that are coming up about history, environment, all of the things that America is generally dealing with. And so I've been impressed. I've been watching, obviously, I was involved also, I should say, I was the chair of the Democratic Party for many years. So I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of these individuals in a different role. Been so impressed with how they've been doing stuff. And when this opening became available, it was sort of the right fit at the right time for me to come in and help and do what I could do.
What has surprised you most being on the inside now?
So, when you're, when I was pregnant, I did all of those, like, read all the books, what to expect, so you're a prepared parent when you have that child. And what you learn is you really don't know the job until you're doing it, right? You just don't know what it's like to be a parent until that baby actually arrives. And so I thought 22 years in the community, I've done a lot of community groups. I was in the newcomers, I was in junior league, I did the PTA. So I've had a lot of interactions with what I thought a lot of interactions, and I kind of knew the community, what was going on. The biggest surprise is the Board of Trustees really work on so many issues that residents don't even realize they're really spending time on. And they're incredibly diligent and thoughtful in their processes of how they look at stuff. And so I have been so impressed about the amount of work that they do and how carefully they approach every issue that comes before them. We're very lucky to have such a dedicated board. And I'm glad I'm able to join them.
So we recognize that you've only been on the board, a couple of months now, but I want to ask you about a couple of issues that people have been talking about a lot.
Very well.
The Manor Park construction. Any idea when it's going to be done and the park will be fully open?
So Manor Park is private, not run by the Village of Larchmont. And so the Manor Park Society would be handling that renovation. Like you, I walk around the community and I have a dog, so I'm out every day down there. And it looks like they say they're opening April 30th on their signs, but that's all I know as well.
Okay. There are some new buildings going up in Larchmont. Can you tell us the progress of them? Because they take up a lot of the sidewalks and the construction interferes.
So like you mentioned, I've only been on the board for 2 months, and this has been the budget season. So a lot of our meeting time has been directed around the budget. And that's really where I've been spending a great deal of my sort of catching up on the progress. I have not had a chance to really dive into the developments projects other than what I knew as a resident. I think that from what I understand is that things are moving along, and that's pretty much all I can say at this point. I'm so sorry I can't give you more. I'm as excited as everyone else to sort of see new growth and to open up our sidewalks again to our residents.
Are there new initiatives for summer dining outside that you know of?
So yes, we are extending this outdoor dining. Everyone loved it. I mean, thank goodness our board really rallied around our restaurants and created that opportunity. But what a blessing, right? Everybody realized this is really nice, and we have this great space, and so we have continued that program, and it's been very receptive of with the residents and the businesses in Larchmont.
Well, the other big issue people are talking about, and it actually relates to the outside dining and the construction, which is parking. One, it's difficult. And two, Larchmont's going to a paid parking model. Tell us about that.
So again, I've only been on 2 months, but this project has been involved for, I'd say, about 4 years. They've been working on this project. So even before the construction, before COVID, before outdoor dining became an issue, they were already looking at a couple of things around parking. One is we are one of the few communities that does not charge for parking. And the downside of not charging is that you lose the revenue that could actually be put back into the village. And so instead of the residents bearing the cost of all of the repairs, it's actually the people that would use the streets, the people that use the sidewalks, the people that park in front of stores and in front of restaurants would be contributing to the maintenance of those streets and those sidewalks. So there was a revenue issue. The other issue was that there were, and there was a traffic study done, and I don't know the specifics about it, but I know that one thing they found was there were many cars that were parked in the village and didn't move for great lengths of time. And what that does for businesses is you don't have a turnover or an opportunity for customers to come in and purchase items. So having paid parking encourages people to continue to move on the streets and allows our businesses to continue to grow.
What do you say to people who, they want to who live here and want to run into a store and can't find parking or don't want to, I think the minimum is going to be $1 for a 2-minute run, don't want to pay $1 to park?
So two things. One is I've been one of those residents where I've wanted to run out and get a gift for somebody. I just have one thing and I want to go into town and I can't find parking. Having paid parking will actually help alleviate that because people will not be parking for long stretches of time on the street in front of stores that you might want to pop into for 15 minutes. And you don't have to pay $1. You can pay by 15-minute increments. So just a quarter. You throw in a quarter, you can run into your store and get your one item and then off you go.
Okay, so that's actually clearing up something that was being reported in places that it was $1 minimum. I want to ask you, if someone wants to get involved in village government, what's the best way to get started?
I always say to my kids, the first step is to show up, find something you're interested in, go to an event that they're doing, reach out in the village website. You can see all of the committees. So you can go on and kind of read about what you might be interested in. And then you can also see on the calendar, maybe when they're having events, or you could reach out to the chairs and ask the chairs directly. Like I'm interested in, for example, I'm one of the new liaison to the environmental committee. Really engaging, motivated, active chairs there. I just met them. I'm so excited to start working with them. I am sure if you reached out and said, hey, I'm interested in environmental issues, they would send you a list of these are our meeting dates, these are our event dates, come and check it out and then just go. There's no commitment, right? You can go to a meeting, you can go to an event, see what they're doing. If it looks like something you'd be interested in, then you just jump right in.
Okay. What's your favorite spot in Larchmont?
Wow. I don't think I can pick one. I'm going to pick two if that's okay.
Okay.
I love Manor Park like everybody does. Again, you have to look for the silver linings of crises, right? And one of the crises in COVID is I've spent a lot of time walking on our community, and we are so blessed to have Manor Park and be able to walk down there anytime we want. And I usually do most days walk down there. So I'd say it's a very rewarding and special place for me when I walk through that park. But I would really be remiss if I don't say that Flint Park has a special place in my heart. It's where I not only got my first step in doing a community project, but it's where my children really grew up. And, it's hard not to be attached to that.
Thank you, Brigid Brennan, the newest Village of Larchmont trustee for LMC Media. I'm Maura Carlin.
Thank you, Maura.